Darius Jackson had always run, but not for fame, not for medals, not for the cheers of strangers. He ran because running cleared his mind. It was the rhythm, the motion, the escape from the weight of the world pressing down on him. Growing up in a small neighborhood, opportunities were scarce, and expectations were even lower. People told him he wouldn't make it, that his dreams were too big, too unrealistic. But he had learned to ignore them and to trust in one thing, his own drive. By the age of 26, Darius had done more with his hands and his mind than many did in a lifetime. He had built a small electronics repair business, invented a prototype for an energy-efficient battery device, and juggled 2 jobs to make ends meet. He didn't need recognition, he needed a chance. That chance came in the form of a bright, sweltering summer afternoon at the city's biggest tech expo. The hall buzzed with excitement, startups displayed their latest innovations, investors scouted for talent, and journalists snapped pictures of flashy tech. Darius held his prototype tightly, feeling the cool metal of the casing, imagining the hours he had poured into perfecting it. Every dent, every soldered wire, every polished edge represented months of sacrifice. Among the crowd, a figure emerged, drawing attention without trying. Lennox Grant. Billionaire. Business mogul. Known for his flashy ventures, his ruthless tactics, and his uncanny ability to see value where no one else did. Lennox had a presence that made the room feel smaller, as if the air itself conformed to him. He approached Darius with a smile that was equal parts charm and challenge. "I hear you've created something interesting," Lennox said, his eyes glinting with amusement. He scanned Darius up and down, as if evaluating the man's worth in a single glance. "I have a proposition for you." Darius blinked. He had expected investors, yes, but not theatrics. He shifted the prototype slightly in his hands. "I'm listening," he said cautiously. Lennox's grin widened. "There's a park nearby. 15-minute walk from here. If you can outrun me in a race across that park, I'll give you my company. My entire company." Darius froze. The statement hung in the air like an impossible weight. He thought it must be a joke. Surely a billionaire wouldn't challenge someone he had just met to a physical race for control of a multimillion-dollar enterprise. Lennox held up his hand, confirming his seriousness. "I'm deadly serious. Speed, strategy, agility, these matter more than money on this challenge. Beat me, and the company is yours. Fail, and you walk away with nothing but a story." A small crowd had begun to gather, sensing the spectacle. Phones were raised, whispers spreading. "No way he'll beat him," someone muttered. "Look at those legs," another said. Lennox's legs were long, muscular, the kind of legs that spoke of both speed and privilege. Darius glanced down at his own shoes-worn sneakers, scuffed, well-used, and felt the familiar twinge of being underestimated. And then something inside him clicked. He remembered every time someone had doubted him, teachers who dismissed his ideas, employers who assumed he wasn't capable, peers who laughed at his ambitions. This wasn't just a race. This was validation, opportunity, and a test all rolled into one. "All right," Darius said finally, his voice steady despite the rapid pulse in his chest. "I'll race you." Lennox's smile became a sharp, knowing grin. "Good. Meet me at the starting line in 10 minutes. Don't be late." Darius walked away to prepare. He didn't have time for elaborate warm-ups. He ran a few stretches, testing his legs, bouncing lightly on the balls of his feet. The park was a mix of paved paths, grassy hills, and scattered obstacles, benches, fountains, trees. Lennox would likely rely on brute strength. Darius would rely on agility, technique, and strategy. The crowd at the park was already forming. People were laughing, jeering, placing bets. Cameras recorded, phones streamed live. Darius felt the familiar flutter of nerves, but he focused on what he always did when running, the rhythm of his breath, the pounding of his heart, the tension in his muscles waiting to explode into motion. Lennox arrived minutes later, wearing brand new running shoes and a fitted tracksuit that cost more than Darius's monthly rent. He stretched theatrically, flexing, as if to show off his confidence. The crowd cheered. Everyone assumed the billionaire would win effortlessly. Darius didn't argue. He didn't flinch. He studied the park, plotting his path mentally, imagining each turn, each obstacle, each potential advantage. The odds were against him, yes, but odds had always underestimated him. The tension built. Whistles, murmurs, and the distant hum of the city blended into a symphony of anticipation. Darius clenched his fists, took a deep breath, and positioned himself at the starting line. The next moments would determine far more than speed. They would determine possibility, fate, and the chance of a lifetime. And then, the whistle blew. Darius launched forward, muscles coiled and firing, mind clear. The race had begun, and with it, a challenge that would test everything he was made of. The 10 minutes before the race felt like a lifetime to Darius Jackson. He crouched near the starting line, bouncing lightly on the balls of his feet, eyes scanning the park like a general surveying a battlefield. The sprawling green space stretched before him, winding paths lined with benches, a fountain spraying water into the afternoon sun, and a few gentle hills that would test stamina. It was beautiful and treacherous all at once, a perfect arena for the challenge Lennox Grant had thrown down. Lennox, on the other side of the line, was the picture of overconfidence. He wore a fitted tracksuit and gleaming running shoes, stretching with exaggerated precision. Cameras flashed as spectators whispered, already deciding the outcome. "No way that kid wins," someone said. "Look at him, he doesn't stand a chance." Darius didn't respond. He had long ago learned that people underestimate you when they can't see the fire burning beneath your calm exterior. He flexed his fingers, feeling the tension and energy coiling through his legs, ready to spring. This wasn't just a race, it was a test of heart, ingenuity, and resilience. He ran a few short sprints along the paved path, gauging the terrain, noting the uneven patches, low-hanging branches, and other obstacles he would have to navigate. Lennox, in contrast, relied on pure strength, bouncing on his heels with confidence. It was predictable. Darius had learned to capitalize on predictability. He knew he couldn't outrun Lennox in a straight sprint over the entire distance, but speed alone would not win this race. Strategy, agility, and mental focus would. People began murmuring, moving closer. A circle formed around the starting line, friends, journalists, and casual bystanders all eager to witness the spectacle. Whispers of disbelief filled the air. How could a young man with scuffed sneakers possibly outrun a billionaire athlete? Darius felt the pulse of adrenaline mingling with calm determination. He thought about every time he had been doubted, every time someone had said he wasn't enough. This race wasn't just about Lennox's money or his company, it was about proving to himself, and to the world, that skill, intelligence, and courage could match or even surpass privilege. A final glance at the path ahead, and he visualized each step. He would hug the inner curves of the track, use the fountain and benches as natural obstacles to slow Lennox, and rely on his smaller, lighter frame to navigate the tricky terrain with precision. Lennox, on the other hand, would likely plow forward in brute force, unaware of how his own confidence might betray him. "Ready?" Lennox called, loud and theatrical. He glanced at the crowd, smirking as if victory was guaranteed. His entourage nodded, phones raised, snapping photos and filming every movement. Darius took a deep breath and crouched lower, readying himself. Every muscle was taut, every sense alert. The air smelled faintly of grass and dust, punctuated by the distant hum of city traffic. The whistle was imminent. Then Lennox made one final taunt. "Hope you're ready, kid. Don't be embarrassed." His laugh carried across the park, a mixture of amusement and arrogance. The spectators chuckled nervously, some betting already on the Billionaire's sure win. Darius ignored it. He didn't need validation from them. He only needed focus, precision, and speed, his own speed, honed over years of running, of dodging obstacles, of surviving challenges no one else had dared. The whistle blew. Lennox bolted forward with raw power, legs stretching like pistons, arms pumping. Darius followed, letting his instincts guide him. Lennox surged ahead immediately, confident in his physical advantage. The crowd gasped and cheered, their expectations already leaning heavily in Lennox's favor. But Darius stayed composed. He weaved around a low bench with practiced agility, avoided a puddle near the fountain that could have slowed him, and adjusted his stride for the uneven grass. Lennox, relying on brute force, stumbled slightly over a root. The advantage Darius had studied all along began to take effect. Halfway through the course, Darius caught up. Lennox's arrogance had blinded him to the subtleties of the terrain. Every twist, every step, every small decision in that moment mattered. Darius's heart pounded, not with fear, but with focus. The crowd's whispers shifted, maybe he can do this, maybe he can. As they approached the next curve, Lennox roared, forcing his body forward with brute force, trying to regain the lead. Darius countered with strategy. He anticipated Lennox's moves, used his momentum to slide past obstacles, and conserved energy for the final stretch. The first part of the race was complete, but the challenge was only beginning. The unexpected lay ahead, the test not just of speed, but of wit, resilience, and character. Darius's mind was clear. He didn't just want to win the race, he wanted to seize the opportunity of a lifetime, to claim what others had underestimated him from the start. And as they rounded the final bend toward the heart of the park, Darius felt the surge of possibility. The race was no longer just about legs. It was about heart, strategy, and courage. The whistle blew again, sharper this time, slicing through the murmurs of the crowd. Darius Jackson's heart surged as he pushed off the starting line. Every muscle in his body coiled and fired in perfect rhythm. He was fast, yes, but more importantly, he was precise. Every step, every pivot, every adjustment in stride was calculated. Lennox Grant exploded forward with the power of someone used to winning at everything he touched. His long legs ate the distance with confidence, his arms swinging like pistons, every motion oozing raw strength. The crowd gasped and cheered. To them, it seemed inevitable, the billionaire would crush the young challenger with ease. But Darius had prepared for more than raw speed. The park was littered with subtle obstacles, uneven pavement, stray roots, benches, fountains, even a few playful dogs running loose. Lennox barreled forward, relying purely on strength and momentum. Darius moved differently. He twisted around obstacles, adjusted his stride to absorb impact, and used his smaller, lighter frame to weave through the gaps Lennox ignored. The first corner approached a sharp bend around a stone fountain. Lennox miscalculated the turn, his momentum sending him wide and nearly brushing against the edge. Darius saw the opening and accelerated, slipping past Lennox like water flowing around a rock. The crowd gasped, leaning forward. No one expected this. "You're fast, but not enough," Lennox shouted over his shoulder, gritting his teeth. He pushed harder, forcing his body into overdrive. Sweat poured down both their faces, soaking shirts, dripping into eyes, but neither slowed. The tension in the park was palpable, everyone watching felt the stakes, as if the race were bigger than just two men. It was a battle of will, skill, and destiny. Halfway through, Darius hit a narrow path lined with low-hanging branches. Lennox barreled straight toward it, unbending, unyielding. The branches scraped his suit, slowing him just enough. Darius ducked and twisted, his reflexes honed from years of navigating small apartments, cramped workshops, and city streets. Every movement was intentional, every breath conserved. A group of children playing nearby cheered Darius on, sensing the underdog in action. Lennox scowled but didn't let it break his concentration. Still, with every passing obstacle, Darius gained a small advantage. Momentum was shifting. As they rounded a corner toward the hill that led to the finish line, Lennox lunged, his stride massive and powerful. Darius's lungs burned, his legs ached, but he stayed composed. The finish line was near, but the true challenge wasn't the distance, it was the unexpected. A small dog darted across the path, barking, chasing a butterfly. Lennox swerved sharply to avoid it, losing a fraction of a second. Darius reacted instantly, sidestepping, keeping his pace, and surging ahead. That moment, tiny, almost inconsequential, was enough. The crowd erupted as Darius crossed the finish line first. He slowed immediately, bending over to catch his breath, and turned to help Lennox regain his balance. Most would have celebrated alone, perhaps taunted the billionaire, but Darius had learned early that humility and integrity mattered more than glory. Lennox stood, panting, his expensive suit drenched in sweat, hair sticking to his forehead. For a moment, silence fell. The crowd was frozen, watching, waiting for the billionaire's reaction. Then, unexpectedly, Lennox laughed, a full, genuine laugh that carried across the park. "You actually did it," Lennox said, shaking his head in disbelief. "I didn't think anyone could outrun me, let alone with style and strategy. You didn't just win, you made it look effortless." Darius straightened, catching his breath. "I ran my way," he said simply. "It wasn't easy, but I've always relied on more than speed." Lennox's eyes gleamed. "I've made many offers, but this is different. Not just because you won, but because you acted with integrity. You helped me up instead of gloating. That's rare. That's why I know you're the right person to take my company." Darius blinked, stunned. "You still mean it? My company?" Lennox nodded, smiling. "Yes. Winning the race was one thing. But the true test was character. That's why I wanted to see how you'd handle pressure, how you'd respond to challenge. You've proven more than I expected." For the first time in months, Darius felt a profound weight lift from his shoulders. This wasn't just a victory in speed, it was a triumph in resilience, strategy, and heart. As the crowd dispersed, people approaching Darius with congratulations, he allowed himself a brief smile. This race, absurd and high stakes as it had become the turning point of his life. The real journey was just beginning, owning a company, proving himself in the business world, and showing the world that talent and character were just as valuable as wealth and privilege. The finish line faded behind him, but the opportunity it represented stretched infinitely ahead. Darius knew one thing with absolute clarity: he was ready for whatever came next. Darius Jackson stood at the edge of the finish line, chest heaving, sweat dripping into his eyes. The crowd's cheers buzzed around him, but he barely noticed. His focus was on Lennox Grant, who was struggling to regain his footing. The billionaire had expected a spectacle, perhaps a minor embarrassment, but not this. Not a young man outmaneuvering him through skill, strategy, and sheer determination. Darius extended a hand. "You okay?" he asked, keeping his voice calm, steady. Lennox blinked, momentarily stunned. Yeah," he muttered, clearly unused to anyone showing concern after a competition. But then, to Darius's surprise, Lennox laughed, deep, genuine, and surprisingly warm. "You really did it? I didn't think it was possible. Honestly, I expected you to trip, stumble, or give up. But you did this with style and heart." Darius smiled faintly, still catching his breath. "It's what I do. I run my way. I don't just rush blindly." Lennox straightened, brushing sweat from his brow. "And that's why you impressed me. Not because you beat me, but because of how you did it. Speed isn't enough. Strategy isn't enough. Character is what matters most." You just passed my real test. Darius furrowed his brow. Test? I thought the race itself was the challenge. Lennox shook his head, a grin spreading across his face. The race was just a spectacle. A way to see you in action under pressure. Anyone could sprint and stumble. But how you react when faced with opportunity and responsibility, that's what counts. I needed to know if you'd act with integrity if you won. Darius's mind raced. He had expected a prize, perhaps an investment, but not this level of scrutiny. His instincts, his decisions during the race, the way he had helped Lennox regain balance, it had all been noticed. And now, Lennox was making it clear, winning alone was not enough. You've proven it, Lennox continued. I built my empire on smart decisions, risk-taking, and trust. And I trust you, Darius. That's why my entire company is yours, if you want it. But more than speed or skill, you showed me something rarer: leadership, empathy, and foresight. Darius's chest tightened. The absurdity of the situation hadn't escaped him: a race, a billionaire, and now an offer to take over a multimillion-dollar company. It was almost surreal. I don't even know what to say, he admitted, still breathing heavily. Lennox laughed again. Say yes. Or say you need time. Either way, the opportunity is here. And remember, it's not just about ownership. It's about responsibility, vision, and making a difference. Can you handle that? Darius thought back to his small apartment, the late nights spent soldering circuits, the sleepless hours working 2 jobs, the moments when people doubted him. He realized something profound: this wasn't luck. This wasn't chance. This was a culmination of every choice he had made, every sacrifice, every lesson. And now, he had a chance to transform more than just his own life. I can handle it, Darius said finally, his voice firm and confident. I'll take it. Lennox extended his hand, and they shook. The crowd erupted into applause, but Darius barely noticed. His mind was already racing, not in the literal sense this time, but with ideas, plans, and possibilities. The company wasn't just a prize, it was a platform. A way to build, innovate, and empower others. Later that day, as they walked through Lennox's office, Darius observed the vast space, the high-tech equipment, the employees working efficiently. But he also noticed something else: gaps, areas where improvement was possible. Systems could be optimized. Processes could be more inclusive. Innovation could be faster. And most importantly, the culture could reflect integrity and opportunity. Lennox glanced at him knowingly. Don't get blinded by wealth or status. Your job isn't just to run the company, it's to transform it, improve it, and lift others along the way. Remember, leadership is about more than being in charge. It's about responsibility, vision, and empathy. You've already demonstrated all 3. Darius nodded, absorbing the weight of the moment. He wasn't just inheriting a company, he was inheriting a legacy. And with it, the power to create a positive impact far beyond himself. That evening, Darius sat in Lennox's corner office, looking out at the city skyline. The sun was setting, painting the buildings with streaks of gold and orange. For the first time in his life, he felt the full scope of opportunity. He had started as an underdog, underestimated, overlooked, doubted. And now, through talent, determination, and integrity, he had risen to a position of influence and responsibility. But he also understood something critical: the race wasn't over. Owning the company was only the beginning. The real challenge would be leading with vision, courage, and empathy, ensuring that the opportunities he had earned would ripple outward, empowering others who had been overlooked, underestimated, or doubted. As the sun dipped below the horizon, Darius made a silent promise: he would honor this chance, not just for himself, but for everyone who had ever been told they weren't enough. And with that, the unexpected twist became clear: the true victory wasn't in beating Lennox in a race. It was in proving that character and heart could transform opportunity into legacy. Darius Jackson sat in the corner office of what had once been Lennox Grant's empire, now officially his. The panoramic view of the city skyline stretched before him, glass towers glowing gold in the late afternoon sun, traffic flowing like veins through the urban landscape. The office was immaculate, sleek furniture, advanced technology, walls lined with awards and framed innovations. It was a symbol of success, power, and wealth. But for Darius, the real story wasn't the view, the gadgets, or even the status. It was the responsibility. The opportunity to do something bigger than himself. To take a company built on profits and prestige and transform it into a platform for innovation, opportunity, and fairness. He stood and walked the floors, greeting employees who had initially been skeptical of him, some still unsure about the sudden change in leadership. Darius didn't flaunt his authority. He didn't demand deference. Instead, he listened. He asked questions. He observed how teams collaborated, where friction existed, and what could be improved. The receptionist, a young woman named Mia, looked up as he passed. "Welcome, Mr. Jackson," she said politely, a trace of uncertainty in her voice. "Thank you," Darius replied warmly. "And please, call me Darius. We're in this together." That one small gesture, the human touch, set the tone. Word spread quickly. Employees began to feel seen, heard, and valued. They noticed that Darius didn't just talk about change, he implemented it. He began with training programs to cultivate both skill and empathy. Managers were instructed to mentor, rather than micromanage. Customer service became a priority not just as a metric, but as a moral imperative. Darius instituted open office hours, where employees at any level could present ideas, share frustrations, or propose innovations. Next, he tackled the technology and operations side. Processes that were outdated, redundant, or inefficient were streamlined. New software was installed to improve workflow and productivity. But Darius never lost sight of the human element. Efficiency mattered, yes, but not at the expense of people. 1 week into his leadership, Darius hosted a company-wide meeting. Employees crowded into the auditorium, curious, cautious, and eager to see what the new owner had planned. He stepped onto the stage, looked out over the room, and smiled. "Good morning," he began. His voice was calm, but it carried authority. "I know this change might feel sudden. But I want you to know something important: this company isn't just mine. It belongs to all of us, our people, our ideas, and our community. I didn't win because I ran fast. I won because I acted with integrity, focus, and courage. And that's what I expect from all of us, together." There was a pause. He let his words sink in. Then he continued. "We're going to innovate. We're going to create opportunities. And we're going to make sure that no employee, no customer, no community member is ever underestimated or dismissed here." The applause was genuine. It wasn't just about excitement over a new leader. It was about hope. A belief that things could be different. That leadership could mean something more than profit margins and quarterly reports. Darius's first major initiative was a mentorship program for young inventors and students from underrepresented backgrounds. He wanted to ensure that talent, creativity, and drive didn't go unnoticed just because someone lacked resources or connections. The company's resources, its labs, its engineers, its technology were now available to those who dared to dream. He also introduced community outreach programs, scholarships, and partnerships with schools. He wanted the message to be clear: opportunity wasn't reserved for the privileged. It could be earned, nurtured, and supported. Late one evening, after the office had emptied, Darius sat back in his chair, reflecting on how far he had come. The race against Lennox Grant had seemed absurd at first, a billionaire wagering his empire on a physical contest. But that race had been more than a test of speed. It had revealed something deeper. Character, courage, and resilience mattered more than privilege or wealth. And now, as the owner of the company, Darius had the power to create ripple effects. Every decision he made, every policy he implemented, every young mind he mentored had the potential to change lives. He thought back to the moments he had been underestimated, the skeptical investors, the teachers who doubted him, the world that tried to measure his worth before seeing his potential. Those experiences had shaped him, sharpened him, and prepared him for this exact moment. Darius smiled. The real victory wasn't in outrunning a billionaire, or even in taking over a company. The true triumph was turning opportunity into impact, and transforming privilege into empowerment. As the city lights began to twinkle outside, Darius knew this was only the beginning. Challenges would come, decisions would test him, and obstacles would appear. But he was ready. Because he had learned that with courage, integrity, and vision, any challenge could be turned into a legacy. The world had underestimated him once. It would not do so again. And for Darius Jackson, that was just the start of something extraordinary.